my name is Rinda Blom. I'm the director of the Red Shoe Play Therapy Training Center in Bloemfontein, South Africa. Today I'm going to talk about how you can use sand tray work to help an individual to redesign a difficult life situation. So we're going to start off by asking the client to build anything that they struggle a lot with in everyday life. In other words, something that's a pattern. So that can be, for example, I always end up being a pleaser. So I always say yes when I want to say no, and then I have too much to do. So you can, for example, it can be that, it can be like people exploit me, it can be like I get angry a lot, I have a lot of fights with colleagues at work. In other words, a pattern, something that repeats. I always feel inferior, I always feel guilty, I always feel I don't deserve something. So I'm going to take the example of a person that is an absolute pleaser, and you ask a person now to go to the sand, to the miniatures, and to build the story in the sand of what is happening. So let me do this now first. Maybe the story will, and you ask them to put it here. So recreate a situation that creates a recurring problem. So maybe they will build something like this. So let's say it looks something like this. Now, ask the client then to take you on a tour. In other words, explain what is happening here. We do not at this stage take a photograph of the story because you don't want to reinforce a pattern. So let's say the client says, you know what, this is me, these two, and these are all the demands that there are. So there's children that I have to take care of, there's orphans that I'm involved with in a children's home, there's repair that need to take place at home. There are people at work that make very angry demands in terms of my work. There's maybe the church that asks me to help with, you know, like the baking pancakes. There are family members that are angry. Then there's people that sometimes, you know, like say, come, let's do that. It's going to be so nice. It looks so nice. So all of these are demands that are put on me, and this is to show I'm on my knees and I'm like always, I feel like saying no, but I always say yes. So I'm like kneeling in front of them and I'm kind of just saying, yes, sure, I'll do that. Yeah, I will do that. Certainly I have time to do that. But in my heart, I feel extremely anxious and overwhelmed and even angry because of all these demands. Now, in your conversation with the client, you focus on the pattern that keeps the problem in place. In this case, the pattern of saying yes when you want to say no, and of being a pleaser, and maybe a caregiver of a lot of people and being overburdened. Next, you ask the client to select the object in the sand that represents a part of him that is central in creating the problem. Okay, so I think the object would be this lady that is standing on her knees because she's not standing on her feet. Now, she's not standing up for herself. She's kind of seeing herself subordinate to all the other claims, and obviously something in her is too scared to stand up for herself. So let's pick this and bring this to the center of the tray. So in this case, it is roundabout is in the center of the tray. Now ask the client to find an object on the shelf that symbolizes a wise and loving entity. Right, so let's go and see. We can be the wise and loving entity. Let's say the client brings this angel figure. Ask the client to put this object in the center, close to the object representing himself, and have a dialogue. So what would you say to this angel in this situation? I would say to the angel, "Angel, please help me. I'm totally overwhelmed. I'm on my knees. I can't carry all these burdens anymore. But something in me is just too scared to stand up and to say no and to make choices in terms of what is right for me and what is not." And maybe the angel will say, "Well, you know, I have a very good plan for you, because can you see where I'm standing now? If I'm standing here, and if when all the demands come, you see me and a reflection of yourself in me and not all of these, maybe it can be easier for you to say no." So maybe, you know, like I want you, when you have to make a next decision on what do you say yes for and what you don't say yes for, that rather than seeing all these people that are in need and that will be angry and that are maybe manipulating you and exploiting you, that you rather see the image of yourself as whole and perfect and make your choice from that place. Okay, so after the dialogue, you ask the client to pick another new object that symbolizes himself or herself carrying out the new way of being. So let's see, how would that look? And most probably we are now going to look for something that is quite self-assertive now, and that would be able to say no, and that feel good about yourself. So let me just see what miniature can that represent. So this is the symbol of the goddess Sophia. This is the symbol of wisdom, and let's say that is how she can react when she starts acting a new way. So we put this object also in the middle of the tray. And this is, and what would be the difference between the two? So now we have the client with a problem, the one who brings the solution, and how it looks when I'm different. In the first place, not on my knees. In the second place, making use of wisdom in terms of the choices and the commitments that I have. You can also ask the client, when after the session is done, to go home and make, as a ritual at home, make a symbol of wisdom, of this, what she has picked, so that she can embody the change and also carry that with her, so that she can see that every day. Maybe, you know, even to an extent of when it's more difficult at the beginning of to make different choices, to be reminded of what she's decided. Okay, now you ask the client to remove all the objects except for those three. So all these burdens and stresses are now removed. All the demands that's placed on her, all the caregiving that she has to do, for example, all of that is removed. And then you ask the client also to lastly remove the three chosen objects and reinforce the dialogue. You are moving old ways of being and old ways of operating from the sandbox. And then you ask the client to take a few deep breaths and to visualize the old way of being as disappearing. So you can literally ask the client to close his or her eyes and take a few deep breaths, like, and picture with the blowing out of the breath, like you're literally blowing out the old ways of pleasing and being exploited and saying yes when you want to say no. Close your eyes, you can say to the client, and pretend that you have put all the old objects in a dustbin. And then the next thing that you ask is rebuild your world, imagining yourself doing, saying and thinking things more positive, more productive. You can use the same objects, you can use different objects. The only object that you have to use is the wise, loving one. Now in this specific case, this angel was a wise, loving one. So the client can now go back to the sand miniatures and pick what she wants to do. So I think the first thing that she would do is that she is not standing on her knees anymore. So she's in the story, and next to her she has, so this character has changed, and she can now make use of wisdom when she makes choices because she sees herself in this image. But let's look for some other miniatures that she would maybe also like to put in. So maybe she would put in what in her life will change. For example, she will have much more time to do fun things, things that's nice and that suits her and that she wants to do. Okay, so I'm just going to see how that look like and what she's going to put in the new story. So let's see here. Maybe she would build a story where I now have time to relax, maybe to go to the beach, and I will still do caregiving because I love that and I will do that for my kids, but I will also have time to read, and I for such a long time wanted to do some dance lessons, so maybe I can ask for permission and I can really see that it's okay that I can start doing that, which is nice. And she can stand here, and I want to do some gardening, so there will be fruit. And just maybe at the end she would build her family and just say like, you know what, if that is true, then I will have much more time to spend with my family and my children, and they would surely enjoy that we are together and we have time, and there's not all these obligations. Okay, so the client then, after building the new world, you will ask the client to take a photograph and to also explain how that is different. Okay, then you ask the client to print out the photograph at home and to put it at a place where it can be frequently seen. The client can also find a symbol that represents a new way of being and put that in his or her pocket. So make the symbol of the wise, loving entity, but make also a symbol of how is this different? How is it different if you take care of yourself? How is it different if you give yourself time to develop a talent that you always wanted to do? How is it different when you're not so overwhelmed and stressed out that you can spend some time with your family? And how is it different that you're not standing on your knees anymore? And then for homework, ask the client to go through this process in imagination at least twice a day, preferably just after waking up and also just before going to bed, of the new way of living and being, because this need to be, it's like in the brain literally has to be consolidated as a new pattern of being, so that the client move out of that old pattern and have much more of a life here. And that is how it works. It's very, very powerful. Thank you.